people are watching us right off the bat. So, welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo. Kind of a special edition here. Don, how you doing?
I am doing much better now than I was even just a half hour ago.
Absolutely.
We saw the news. Holy cow. We had planned to come on at 11. You still feel like you're walking on eggshells a little bit with so much of it, but holy cow, what a huge relief to hear that with the University of Cincinnati's.
Yeah, the Bills just put out a tweet,
Bills, right?
Saying that he's shown some remarkable improvement over the last 24 hours. And I think that's kind of what everybody was holding their breath for, right? Was the he's awake or he's showing improvement.
Yeah.
I feel like from what I had read, it was going to be like that 24, 36, 48 hour time frame to get some type of news either way. And
I hadn't heard that. I just, so many people, the injury was so rare. Which I guess is a good thing. I have a friend, my best friend Anthony has heart issues of his own, and he's very studious. And he called me last night, was talking to his doctor and said that, and this is from a doctor, not me. We don't play one on TV or anything, but at least in terms of other players and the fear of that happening, he said that it was, however, the heart was when the impact happened was in just.
Yeah,
it's such a sliver of a chance that is there when. So
it's
you take that as
it's almost like a 1 in a million,
something like that.
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
So I've read and I've heard a couple people talking about, and I guess we can kind of start here, talking about that. Other than a hospital, it's probably the best place in America that he could have been at that time, and I'm in awe of what the medical professionals, what the EMTs. I'm in awe of EMTs to begin with. I think they don't get enough.
One. My mom is a volunteer EMT.
They do amazing work, and they're always behind the scenes. But I'm just in awe of how that entire operation, came together and went. We talked with Bud Carpenter on an earlier episode, and he kind of walked us through the Kevin Everett situation that I know, we'll talk about, from your point of view in a minute. But I guess like when you're on the field, and the doctors and the trainers are always on call and always waiting. And I was struck, there's always an ambulance in the tunnel, and they kind of just become in the background of most NFL games. You don't think about the ambulance. You don't think about,
you don't want to have to.
You don't want to have to. And the doctors, that travel with the team, these are the same guys every week. Like they become part of the family as well. And I can't imagine doing your job. If you're an EMT or something in front of 65,000 people and you've got 10 seconds to diagnose what happened, unbelievable job. Unbelievable.
Gosh, the way you put that is so true. That when we were there, we had a team of 5 doctors and 3 would travel, and so sometimes doctors aren't able to go, and another one would have to come in this place. Sometimes they came right from surgery, and I happened to sit near them on the plane, and why are they late? Well, they were just operating on someone, but
they have a day job, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm they saved his life, and
it's indisputable.
And just like how that went, we always talk about, execution and a game plan and all of that. And these guys executed their game because Bud was telling us how much they drill for situations like this.
And that year with 2007 with Kevin Everett, he told us on the podcast that they had just done the training for that, like for that specific injury. And they were telling Roger Goodell, hey, because Roger Goodell was like, how did you guys do this? And he said, well, we just did the training, and obviously they paid attention.
Yeah. So I mean, you're always talking about how a team can execute and how a team can come together, and that team of paramedics from the Bills and from the Bengals, I'm sure that they were heavily involved as well. Just to watch a group of 15, 20 people execute on a football field that's not football related was unbelievable. I can't get over it.
It was, and I'm thinking back to Monday night. I was watching the game with my wife and my daughter Claire and her boyfriend Connor, and it was just so surreal. I stepped in it. I know there's people that talk about put it this way: you saw the injury. It didn't look, the collision, the one that the Chargers had the week before where the guy got suspended, was far worse. Somebody come on with us?
Yep. We have Ryan Neufeld going to join us right now.
Ryan Neufeld. Oh, fantastic. Ryan, I was talking to him earlier, hoping he can make it. He was a teammate of Kevin Everett. He was on the field that day. He agreed to come on, and let's welcome him.
Ryan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. What's going on? Hey, Don.
Hey, Ryan, how are you? Yeah,
I'm good.
thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
You're calling from Dallas, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Don, you can kind of set the scene as to why Ryan kind of wanted to be on and how it's relevant
Well,
to today.
I reached out to Ryan and he agreed to come on immediately. Obviously, Ryan, you were a teammate of Kevin Everett, which prior to Monday night, clearly Kevin Everett was I don't know the right word for it, a standard bearer for what is considered a catastrophic injury, a life-threatening injury. And you were his teammate. You played his position. You were in the room with him. There was only 4 tight ends. It was you and Robert Royal and Kevin. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you played on almost every special teams unit. You were probably on the field for that play. And I guess maybe if you could kind of, first of all, let us know what your experience was watching the game with Hamlin the other night, and then take us back to what you remember for those moments with Kevin Everett.
Yeah. So my experience, it just, you and you hear a lot of the analysts that talk about it. They always say, you expect them to first, you expect them to get up, that, and then once you see that, okay, well, there's several doctors around, he's not getting up, then you kind of, okay, well, maybe they got to bring a cart out, maybe it's some type of severe leg injury or something. So that's kind of what goes through your mind. And then when reports started coming out that they, I guess, were doing CPR, that's just a whole different level right there. And because once you have to perform the CPR, that you're trying to revive him, bring him back, and it's just, and I can't even. I got a glimpse of that with, as you alluded to with Kevin, and then I immediately went back to that day, being on the field with Kevin. Yeah, it was a kickoff coverage. We were on the field the same time during that play, and after the play, and I noticed he wasn't getting up. At first I thought maybe it was a concussion, and then the doctors went out there, and it just time keeps going by, and he's still not responding. He's still not getting up, and very quickly the mindset of the entire team shifts from to the well-being of the player, and because that's your teammate, that's your brother. You spend, as being a tight end in the same room with them, going through off-season workouts, going through training camp, being in meet, you're together all the time, being a fellow tight end. So, and
So
your
meetings,
mindset just changes. Yeah. And
yeah.
you just, because him on a personal level, his family, his wife. And so it goes to the humanity, and the focus of the game just kind of disappears. And
So
your
Ryan,
sole focus is on him.
Just to let you know, we are also lucky to be joined by George Wilson here. And hi, George, can you hear us?
Yes, hey, good morning, guys. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, George, good to see you, bro.
What's going on, brother? Don, what's up, man? You got another paycheck for me?
Well, I have to go back, so we'll see. I can make some calls and see if there's anything around.
No, that's all good. Thank you, guys, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got direct deposit since you were there, George. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you, George. Ryan we was just telling us about the moment on the field, with Kevin Everett. Obviously, as a point of reference, was the most serious injury, life-threatening, that you could put in that category that happened until Monday night, and was on the field. Were you on the field for that play too? I know you played a lot of special teams as you were playing safety, or even if you weren't, what do you recall from that?
Well, yes, I was actually inactive that day.
Okay.
But I was down on the field. And I'd heard the tail end of what Ryan was saying, and essentially, it's one thing to see another player down, regardless of what team they're playing for, but for it to be someone that you know intimately, someone that's a brother, somebody that you've been in those trenches with, that forms a bond that is just as deep and as strong as a family bond, with a sibling that you grew up with. And so to see that person, that man down on the field, and in Kevin's instance, he did have some issues with his breathing there on the field. They had to give him the injection on the field to lower his body temperature to try to preserve his spine and give him the best chance as a positive recovery, and to be able to have a sense of quality of life. And so that's something that that the medical staff was on top of. I think I remember hearing that the late Ralph Wilson actually funded some of that research that went into developing that medical tool. And so I just think that if any team in the NFL is equipped and prepared to handle a situation like that, it's definitely the Buffalo Bills. And I wouldn't want to wish this on anybody, but I do think that if it's going to happen to any organization, I think the Buffalo Bills are in the position to be able to handle it best.
For both of you guys here, for somebody who hasn't played at obviously nearly the level you guys did, were you guys like scared on the field after that? I mean, obviously for Kevin or the guys today were for Damar, but like, did you ever feel that fear maybe before that injury? Did things change for you and your mindset after that injury? Was it something that you continued to think about like as that game went on and then the weeks after? Like did it change you at all?
I think we are really good at compartmentalizing the situation. It's always in the back of our mind. Injuries are always in the back of our mind, but once the game starts, once you're in the throes of the competition and the game, you're so focused in on your job, what you have to do, and information has to be processed so quickly. You quickly forget about the possibility of injury because you're so focused on what you have to do. So Kevin's well-being, his health was always with us, always in our minds. But again, our ability as athletes at that level I think our ability to compartmentalize things is kind of how we were able to approach each week.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. You definitely are conditioned to feel essentially no emotion, no pain, no, we call the turning over of the ball, during the game, sudden change. You're going to be excited sometimes, you're going to be upset sometimes, other times, depending on which side of that coin you're on. But you've been conditioned to not be impacted. You've been conditioned to go out there and get the job done. And unfortunately, when it comes to the human side of things and it comes to injuries like that, we're conditioned to move on to the next play. And I think that, all injuries are not the same. What happened on Monday night, I don't think that anybody that was suited up was capable of going back and truly giving their best effort. Right. For us, it was a different time. They delayed the game, I want to say about 30 minutes plus. We saw, the board come out. We saw them lift them up. We saw them load them in, and we saw that ambulance drive off the field and up that tunnel in the north end zone. And so, we didn't have the mental health awareness now that, back then, and we were essentially forced to have to bury that in the back of our minds and get through the rest of that game. But it took me to last night to really figure out, did we actually win that game? It was buried that back. It was buried beneath so many other memories, so many other traumas that it took for me last night to realize that I think we might have won that game, but I don't know. I can't remember exactly what happened. But I remember it was the first game of the season, but
Yeah.
I can't remember what happened because the only thought that anybody else had was how's Kevin. I remember getting in the locker room, everybody's wanting to know how he is. And they're just telling us, giving us the little updates that they had. But I remember them telling us, not to go up to the hospital that night, to give the medical staff and his family some time. But, I really can't tell you anything else about that day other than that opening kickoff.
I do remember, and actually we lost that game on the last play. They the Broncos rushed their special teams out and kicked a long field goal. I don't even think they had a timeout. I think that's probably a great illustration, George, of how it is now. I was part of the team. I was part of the front office, but the extent of the brotherhood aspect that you and Ryan had as players with Kevin, just ran deeper. I mean, you were spending time every day. Like Ryan said when he first came on, you knew their families. And so that's actually remarkable that, the result of the game got lost in the memory of what happened. This is, in that year, I had 2 complimentary tickets, and I gave them to a young man who lived on our street. He actually ended up did the cover of the book for me years later. He's a graphic artist, but he was in high school, and his mom did not want him to play football. He was a little undersized, and his father was okay with him playing, but he just loved football. He loved the Bills, and so the mom kind of reluctantly let him try out for the team. The high school team here in West Seneca. And, but she never liked the idea. So at the game, he was there with his father, and this happened with Kevin Everett. The ambulance came on the field, and they knew, she just, one of the few people, she was not a Bills fan, but they came home. On the way home, Tom Sr. told Tom Jr., hey, we're not going to talk about this to your mom. She probably didn't even watch the game. It was a beautiful day. She was, gardening or something. So they get home. She said, oh, how was the game? And he's like, tough. We lost in the last play. And she goes, well, what about that young man that got hurt? And they pretended that they didn't notice. And she was like, guys, there was an ambulance on the field for a half hour. I'm not stupid. Tommy, why are you playing football? And it was just like, it's hard to come up with too many things that are humorous related to that. But that's probably the only one I have. It's just, but it reinforced her how dangerous the game was. But
how long did it take for you guys to know that he was, going to be okay? Was it a day? Was it 2 days? Like when did you guys find out that he was, out of the woods, I guess?
It was from what I remember, George, it was a while. It took a while. It was, because I think the next morning in the team meeting, they still didn't have much information. They told us, I remember Bud was explaining, I think Bud had come in and explained the type of injury, but it was hairy for several days.
I want to say it was. I want to say it was toward the end as we were going into our next game. We started to get a little bit more of a status update. I remember going to see him the day after. That day was tough because we had just saw it in person the previous day, and we actually saw it on film the next day again. And nobody really thinks about what that does to a person, let alone an athlete. We watched it again. His locker is empty. His seat at the table he normally sits at in the cafeteria is empty.
Ryan, for Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I remember walking into his hospital room, and they had him strapped down to his bed and wrapped in a blanket, and they told us to try to not show emotion because it would get his heart rate up and would get him, emotional and everything. But I couldn't contain my emotions when I saw somebody that I used to line up and go against in one-on-ones all camp and practice every day. I saw him run down on that play, and to see him only able to really speak to me with his eyes, and I just never will forget the way he trembled because his core body temperature was still low from the injection that he received. And I just remember just his eyes. I never can forget his eyes. And that's what Monday triggered for me watching the game. Just all these whirlwinds of emotions and memories that I had forgotten. And they just all came rushing back to me almost in an emotional flood. And it was just trying to work through that while we're hoping for some type of status update that he's going to be okay. We never got that. And so we were just left to our own feelings, our own thoughts from our personal experiences as to, what we were feeling there in real time. And I know it was different for everybody, but I know everybody was impacted in some way.
Did he, when you looked in his eyes, did you get a message back from him that he saw you and acknowledged you, even though he couldn't communicate? Like he knew you were there?
Yes, absolutely. He was completely aware. He was completely present, so I know that he saw me. I know that he recognized me, but he was essentially in a helpless state at that point. We're talking, a day after. And so, and that was for me as somebody that didn't share a room with him. I know it was a completely, probably a similar experience, but a probably more heightened experience for a guy like Ryan who sat by him in the meeting room. Somebody I know it was different. Even
you stole my question. You stole my question, George. I was going to ask Ryan.
I was too.
Yeah, I'm like, Ryan, what's it like? I mean, A, I guess I get what's that like, and then B, the business of the league goes on, and somebody's got to take his place. Like, is there a feeling of like guilt or like how does that work? Like in a room like that when you're his teammate but also the same position. Like what were your feelings around all of that afterwards?
It was tough. It was, that his chair just, being empty. It's like, that's your brother. He was like, he's always there. You see, he's always there. He's all, it's no one, no matter what you're going through, if you're sick or, aside from, maybe if your wife is having a baby or there's a death in the family, other than those things, your teammate's there. He's next to you. He's there. If you're sick, you're still in the building and you're there. So for him not to be there, and because of the circumstances he was going through, and that's your brother you've seen every day. A piece of you is missing. It's kind of hard to explain, but there was just kind of a cloud over in that room that just didn't really go away.
Do you remember whose locker he was next to? His locker? Do you recall? Usually, I know guys, you all had like the safeties were kind of together. Do you remember? I mean, maybe it was yours, or you weren't far from him if it wasn't right next to him. But that would have been another void, right?
Yeah, I think I was. So Sam Aiken was right next to me, and I think Robert was next to him. Yeah.
Wasn't he on the back wall near Roscoe? Wasn't he on the back wall near Roscoe in the back corner by the bathroom, I believe?
I think so. Yeah, George, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, they were friends and, University of Miami teammates, and, they were still on the offensive side of the ball. So if you can recall a few months later, when he miraculously and triumphantly walked onto that field, I mean, what were your feelings on the complete opposite end of what you experienced early? And obviously we're hoping with the news recently of the last hour that Hamlin's able to do the same thing at some point. And it looks more promising for that. But what were your memories of that?
Just emotional on the opposite side. Just the joy and the emotions that came with that.
Were you afraid to touch him? I mean, you talking about a guy who, you know what I mean? What do? You can't give him a big bear hug. Were you giving instructions like, guys, just get real close, but don't, like what you would normally do?
Yeah, I don't quite remember instructions on how to handle that, but yeah, I mean, I just remember him walking on the field and just emotions on the opposite side from where he had come, where he was initially.
Sure. And George, what were your memories of that, if you can recall?
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember how soon after the injury, but I do remember the Bills having them back to come out before kickoff. And like Ryan said, it was joy, it was elation, it was a breath of a sigh of relief to know that he was able to regain some sense of a quality of his life. And we've all been there. We've all had a hit that's scared us. We've all had a stinger. We've all had that feeling where we may have dropped our head just a little bit, and we were able to walk away from that. And that's the part that never really left the back of your mind. It was always there what the risk was, but to see Kevin take the field and walk out there on his own power, was definitely something that lifted our team, boosted our morale, because I think a lot of us were still, thinking about him and the things that he was having, the battle that he was having to fight, as opposed to being out there on the field with us. And that battle that he fought, he won. And that was a harder battle that he had to fight than what we were doing out there on the football field.
Do you guys, we started the show before you joined us talking about like the EMTs and the doctors and the trainers. Like, what is the players' relationship with, the medical staff? I mean, obviously these guys are there, to save your life in the worst case scenario. Like, do you guys have a reaction to, what they did Monday night? And then maybe you could just explain to people like what the players, relationship with the trainers are, and with the doctors and, the medical staff.
All those are different. The trainers are there every day. The team doctors are only around a few days throughout the week, and they're all not there. And then you have the EMTs that are there on game day. The EMTs are the same people week in and week out. So you get to know them, you get to know their faces, and you don't really know their names or get to really talk to them a whole lot unless you have to get into that ambulance.
Yeah, you want to keep it that way. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. With the team doctors, you have them more than the EMTs, because there's the doctors that provide, that conduct the physicals every year, the annual physicals that guys have to go through. They're on the airplanes with us. If you're sick or have any type of ailment, they'll send you to them, during the week if you need to get some medicine prescribed or have an X-ray or MRI done. So you do know them a little better, but the trainers intimately. The trainers just as much as your coaches, because they're providing information to you. If you have to go in for treatment, you interact with them. And so even though those relationships, they're there for the same cause, the same reason, the relationships varies you know, from whichever group you're in. But, you know, to see what they did on Monday, they've drilled for this, they prepared for that moment, and it looked as if, you know, they did it, they executed their plan flawlessly. I think that's just a tip of the hat to the players on the field to let everybody know that this is something different. The referees is stopping the game and recognize, like, it was a total effort. Like I said, from the players, the referees that were on the field, to the medical staff that was on the sideline ready to go.
Yeah, but first of all, the training staff back in 2007 was Bud Carpenter was the head trainer. Then it was Sean Gibson, Greg McMillan, Chris Fischetti. I might be missing someone. I know they were like the core four.
Yeah, they were the core.
Yeah. And so Monday night, I think a player's perspective was so interesting. And before the show, I was telling Josh, I kind of stepped in it when they came back to a commercial. The first thing you saw was Josh Allen, and he looked horrified. And I don't think anyone except for people on the field could really understand the severity of the injury. And that includes those of us watching on TV. And I made a comment to my daughter that I wish I could take back. I said something to the effect of, okay, Josh, know that your teammates are watching you. But, later on, when they found out what really happened, it's no wonder, he looked that way. And when you guys had that up close look at, you were right near Kevin and you were praying for him, and you just saw things that those watching on TV couldn't. Like you could see his eyes, and it's just such a different level. Can't imagine.
Yeah, that just seeing the CPR, that's the difference. Like you see somebody on the ground fighting for their life. That's what you saw in the expression on Josh's face and his teammates. It was a look of disbelief and shock that something like this could be taking place on the football field in front of thousands of people in the stadium and in front of millions of people on television. It was complete and utter shock and disbelief and wanting to accept that this is our reality right now.
Yeah.
Ryan and George, I guess some of my thoughts also go to T. Higgins. And, you've seen a lot of conversation about him and the guilt that he has. And I apparently he was at the hospital Monday night trying to, to see Damar. Did you guys ever feel that like the other way, George, if you hit somebody really hard, or Ryan, you pancake block somebody, like, was there ever a concern, not for your safety, but for the opponent from something you did, or what advice would you give to T. Higgins to kind of clear his conscience on a freak accident?
As far as a pancake block, I didn't really feel bad for the guy. I mean, because he would, he'd get up, but I think I remember from that hit, from when Kevin got hurt, I remember the guy that Kevin had tackled and ran into, he did feel pretty guilty. It kind of, affected him quite a bit. But it's, man, you're just playing the game. You don't expect anything like that to happen. So, I'm sure he feels some type of guilt towards it, but I mean, it's not, it's nothing he could have done any differently. So
right, he was just being a ball carrier trying to make a play. I mean, we've seen that tackle happen, week in and week out in the NFL, and unfortunately, the dark side of the internet and social media has tried to point the finger and blame him for the injury, where that's certainly out of place. Excuse me.
Right, because he didn't do anything.
Nothing malicious. Yeah, it was nothing malicious at all, in what he was doing. And those that are placing blame or pointing the finger at him is completely wrong. my advice to him would be to surround yourself with the people that love you and lift you up. Turn off the television, turn off any social media access that you may have, and really listen to the people around you, and listen, pray about it if you have a relationship with God. It's definitely something that he's going to deal with going forward. It was a traumatic experience for everybody, but for he and Damar, it's going to be even more traumatic because of their involvement, in the play. But I certainly, send some of my thoughts and prayers to him as well, because I know that he's going through his own trauma, being on the other side of the play.
Yeah, I mean, as far as football plays go, you guys both mentioned how the next day you watched film of every game, but you watched that collision, and you see a lot of collisions that look worse. I mean, the way with Kevin Everett, I heard someone make a comparison to when Dale Earnhardt was killed in his car. You see a lot of crashes that are worse. The car spins over and does all these flips where he just kind of went into a wall. But what happened was his body took the impact. And in Kevin's case, his body took the impact. And in the case of Damar Hamlin, his heart took the impact. And you like to think that obviously they're rare cases, but they do happen. And it makes sense that it would affect you guys the way it did.
Did you guys have a reaction to how Coach McDermott and Coach Taylor handled the situation? I thought, they did an amazing job as well. You heard Coach Taylor yesterday say that the first thing that Coach McDermott said to him, kind of hiding his lips, was that he needed to go to the hospital with Damar. As players, what was your reaction to how the coaches handled it?
I thought they handled it perfectly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, because like we had mentioned, they were on the field and they saw everything going on. Once they witnessed the CPR, there's no way. So I it's no surprise to me that Coach McDermott said, I can't coach this game. I got to go to the hospital. And that doesn't shock me because of the brotherhood and the family aspect of the game, and that we have as teammates, because they were trying to bring him back to life. So you cannot recover from that at that moment. So I thought they handled it perfectly.
Yeah, I think it was flawless. I mean, I knew when they came back from the second commercial break, I told a friend of mine, they're not resuming this game. And I didn't even know that, CPR had been administered at that point. It just felt different, and how the guys were moving, how the coaches were moving, that their energy, their body language, their expressions just was different compared to any other instance like this. And so they put their players first, but they also put themselves in that mix with their players, because they were traumatized just as the players were. They were just the ones, because of the position they hold, they were forced to have to make a judgment call on behalf of all their players. And they certainly made the right decision, because I don't think anybody can imagine what that game would have looked like had they been forced to have to go continue.
Yeah. Did either of you guys play with Troy Vincent when he was with the Bills? Did you cross paths?
Oh yeah, Troy was one of my my mentors when I was a rookie. I used to spend a lot of time before practice and after practice hanging around Troy, picking his brain, and he certainly has handled this the right way. From what's being communicated publicly, what's the story has been, how he supported both coaches and their decisions to postpone the game. Troy is a former player that knows what it's like to be in the uniform, knows what it's like to be in that locker room, and now to be an executive for the NFL, I think it did great justice for this situation to have a player at the table on the NFL side to be able to offer some wise counsel and some empathetic counsel to ensure that the players were the priority.
Yeah, with Troy, a couple things I remember about him. First of all, when he played for the Bills, he was the player union
president,
rep, right?
President. Yeah, he was the president. Right. He's the president.
Right. So you knew he was going places, but he always used to quiz me about the CBA. Hey, shouldn't we be getting this and shouldn't we be getting that? And I knew most of it, but he definitely made me sharper to the point, though, if he had a tough question, I would kind of avoid him. If I saw him in the cafeteria, like, I'll come back later until I know the answer for sure. The second thing I remember about him is my office happened to be in the corner of the building where the paychecks were. You guys remember that? But it was close to Mr. Wilson. And Mr. Wilson really wanted to tap into Troy's brain to know, as a person representative of the players and how they thought. So he used to take them to lunch sometimes. And I remember, you guys might remember this too, there were a couple times where I think Troy was actually late for practice a little bit and probably felt bad, but he went on and he was like, yeah, sorry, the owner just had me out for lunch. And there's an excuse.
I remember one training camp practice. We were on the field in the middle of I don't know if it was team or 7-on-7, but Mr. Wilson used to always be driven around on his golf cart. And so we're like literally in the middle of running a play and the golf cart, comes onto the field. Everybody stopped. Coaches blow the whistle. Mr. Wilson had his driver drive up to Troy on the field so they could have a conversation about who knows what. But I remember saying, now this is the first time I've ever saw an NFL practice stop in the middle for any reason other than an injury. And so, but that just goes to show you the respect and the consideration that he received from Mr. Wilson, and I'm sure some of the other owners, especially for him to be in the position that he has today.
Ryan, do you still, either one of you guys, are you guys in contact with Kevin? Like, what did it look like for him, the season after? Obviously it was a long road and he never played again. Like, were you guys able to, maintain friendships with him? Did he feel, was he able to still be around the team? Was it hard for him to, watch football after that? Like, do you guys know, how things kind of went from, with ex-teammates with him?
No, there's a lot of guys that still keep in contact with him. Right now, it's few and far between. Obviously, with social media, we keep in contact with each other. I know he's doing well as far as I know. He's got I think he's 5 kids now, 4 girls, and just had a boy. So yeah, he's doing well. But as far as like, I can't quite. I think he wasn't around after the injury because he was so involved in rehab and everything. So
yeah, it's different. The trauma from that injury is one thing, but when you're out of the game, your life and your relationships change. Mm-hmm. I know Ryan can testify to that as well. But the relationships and the people, whether there's, you'll keep up with some teammates, because you're closer to some more than others. Others, you'll keep in touch with on social media. But, there's life inside that bubble, and then there's life outside of that NFL bubble. And Don, even as a former employee for the team, I'm sure that's the exact same for you. And so for Kevin, when he had to step away from the team and focus on his rehab and his personal, journey to recovery, those priorities are different. Those characters, those teammates that was inside the bubble are now replaced with the medical staff and the rehabilitation staff, at the rehab center that he was going to. I do believe that, after they were able to stabilize him, they relocated him back to Texas, I believe, to complete his rehab, if my memory serves me correctly. And so,
Houston,
that move, essentially, kind of took him out of that bubble that I'm referring to, to where it's back to real world. And the way life looks inside that bubble compared to outside, and the relationships are completely night and day difference.
Yeah, they're there, and they're just kind of shelved. Even just in regards to this phone call, I'm so privileged that I haven't talked to either one of you in quite a while. George a couple of years ago, and Ryan on social media a little bit to see each other. But the fact that you were willing to come on and talk with us, I had the privilege of having a Zoom call with Kevin a couple of years ago. For the book, which is about a 2006 crazy storm. You guys keep hearing about storms, but that one was really out there. But the co-author, Billy Clune, and I, when he agreed to do the call, we told each other, we're not going to bring up the injury. We're not going to bring up the injury. We're going to ask him what it was like driving the year before in 06 when he was a rookie. And Roscoe Parrish had told me a funny story that, he had only seen snow once in his life, and he thinks it was in Syracuse. So when he, woke up that morning, he's like, Kevin, come get me. He just got an Escalade. So Kevin picked him up, and they had one of the hairiest rides ever to the stadium. So I wanted to ask Kevin about that, and he remembered it well. And you could tell in the call that he really enjoyed talking about part of his football career that didn't have to do with the injury. But then he did bring it up. He brought up the injury because it was almost an elephant in the room, and he thought, I better say something about it, or he wanted to. And he said that because of his faith and the way things turned out, it was an opportunity for him to have a platform to talk about that. And so it was very interesting.
Maybe before we let you guys go here, could you just talk a little bit about like the bond of the players with the community? Obviously the fans and social media has been, with Damar Hamlin's charity and just the well wishes from around the world. I mean, literally around the world. The president of the United States called his family yesterday. Like, do you guys like what do you say when people say, oh, you played for the Bills? Like, do you still have like a ongoing relationship with the community here? Or obviously it's probably not a surprise how the Bills Mafia rallied, has rallied here.
Yeah, I tell this to people all the time that the Bills fans, the community, Bills Mafia, it's second to none. I mean, they're the best fan base in professional sports. I truly believe that. Being a part of it and just seeing how they rally around their team. I mean, what was it? A few years ago, they donated to didn't Andy Dalton when they pulled off that amazing win. I mean, it's just like it's just the fan base is amazing, and it's no shock to me that the level that Hamlin's toy drive that it's reached what it has reached because of Bills Mafia. I mean, I love going back. I love going back to visit and seeing, being around people and some old friends that still live there. So, but yeah, I mean, I love it there, and I love to visit.
Yeah, it's definitely the best fans in all of sports. For me, being a practice squad guy, working myself up the ladder on the team, my connection with the community is from that blue collar work ethic that is exemplified day in and day out in the Buffalo community. And I think that I connected with them and they connected with me because of my journey from being a practice squad guy to special teams guy to eventually being a starter and a captain. I think that was my connection, was that they saw something in me, something in my journey that they could connect with. And then on top of that, I was very active in the community, and I still have a lot of those relationships now. from, the kids that I used to mentor and go and see at the community center on the west side of Buffalo. Them reaching out to me and just saying, hey, man, I really appreciate all that you did. This is what's going on with me now. Or when we come back, and there are familiar faces, some still there in the organization, or we go around the community and people still recognize us without us having a jersey on. They know their players in and inside and out, whether they are wearing the jersey or they're not wearing the jersey. They know their players intimately. They protect and root for them passionately. And there is a true connection between the team and the community. How the team performs on Sunday is going to have a direct correlation to what type of week it's going to be in Buffalo for everybody. And that is very true. Yes. And you don't know that unless you have spent some time there. There is a connection between the outcome of the games on a weekly basis and what the morale in the community is.
Yeah, that happens in my house every weekend with my wife. I told this story before, and kind of a late moment here. Only in Buffalo, I feel like that my wife shares season tickets with two of my best friends who are guys. So on Sunday mornings at like 7:30 a.m., she's gearing up to go to the game with my two buddies, and my two 10-year-old boys and I. We go to my friend's house who has like a man cave and watch a bunch of the games at the same time. But I'm like, this is a true Buffalo thing where my wife is going with my boys. Like it's just only here, right? Like
it plays out in traffic too, for good and bad. After a win, and somebody, go ahead, and. After a loss, it's just like tunnel vision. But Ryan and George, we our podcast has been mostly about 1990, which was probably the season where it was Bills were a consensus pick to go to the Super Bowl. But we made an exception given the events of the week. Wanted to talk about the current Bills, which we do some too. But on Cover One Network, we have guys like Chris is on with us here. They dig in more than we do. I hope that this has been tremendous, and what I really would like to ask you both is if you'd come back on later after maybe February. We'd like to kind of get into your own careers and talk about, like George, you alluded a little bit to yours, and what you remember about being drafted, and some other questions we have. We might even put you into a 2-minute warning situation to ask you some out of the. I'm looking up at some of the questions we asked some of the guys, but I would love to be able to do that. And I when I reached out to both of you, I said, "Hey, do you have a few minutes to come on?" And here you've given us
almost an hour.
Wow! Yeah. And this has been for me the most special show that we've had so far.
We appreciate this opportunity. I know for me, this has been very therapeutic. Just to be able to kind of talk through some of our thoughts. You guys have been close to the game. Ryan played the game with me, and so this is a connection, a circle that I certainly feel comfortable expressing myself. Yesterday, the Bills Legends community got together on a call, and a lot of guys were kind of voicing how they were feeling and how they were processing everything. And so it was after that call. If you had texted me this yesterday morning, Don, I probably wasn't in a place to really have this conversation. But just due to that conversation kind of breaking the ice and revealing that what I was feeling was not exclusive to me, certainly, put me in a better headspace this morning to be able to feel more comfortable expressing what my thoughts were, what my takeaways were, and how it impacted me. And seeing Ryan on here expressing himself as well certainly aided in me being able to open up as well. So thank you guys for this opportunity.
Thank you both.
Yeah,
it's been
great. Thank you. I appreciate it too. And it's unfortunate that it takes this type of situation to kind of see each other again. But seeing you, Don, and then George, seeing your face again, it's like it's like I feel like it hasn't been that long since I've seen you. You know, it's like we pick up right where we left off, and it's
neither one of you are getting paid for this today, though. Don's not paying you.
I mean, it's really good to see your all's faces again. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Just so you guys know, and we had a comment on here, and I just looked online. According to CNN, I guess his agent just told CNN that he is awake and he's holding hands with family members, which is just amazing.
Praise God.
Yeah, so
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Here we go. CNN just reported that Damar is fully awake and he's holding family members' hands.
Who called that?
Matt Hancock.
Hancock, whoever you are, thank you.
Yeah, and I just saw on here, and it's all over social media that apparently.
Oh man, that's
unbelievable.
That is incredible, incredible. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of a perfect way to end with you guys. Really appreciate your time and your perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you both, guys. All right.
I think Oh wow, that was great. That was
when I woke up this morning, you and I were talking about what we would say to each other. Chris, are you still on with us? Chris Kepner, cover one.
Yeah,
we'd love to have you come on if you could.
He's still here with us. I'm so glad that they came on. I'm so glad, obviously, that we great job being a traffic cop for us there. That was trial by fire for the two of us.
I figured one might come on. I didn't know they both would, so thank you for helping orchestrate that. Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, I've been in the background listening, and great conversation with those guys. It was really cool that they were able to join and give us their perspective, having been, players and in another serious situation.
I'm so I'm almost moved to tears that he's holding hands with his mom, and that he's alert and responsive, and that was kind of the hope and the dream 24 hours ago that we're going to get that text or that update from the hospital that he's alert and awake.
Yeah, we were waiting for signs like his vitals are doing this or he's doing this on his own, like his body, but a level of consciousness, it would appear, had to have happened for him to, take an action to do that. That's another step.
I actually just saw a really interesting tweet on Twitter that I really like, and I don't know how feasible this is, but somebody just suggested that instead of if they do play Sunday, instead of introducing the players by name, they introduce the doctors and the EMTs, or the trainers, or you have a starting lineup of 11 guys who contributed to this, what looks like to be a miraculous, outcome. Yeah. I think, obviously they'll be honored in some way, but just what I just keep going back to the idea that,
it occurred to me, both, George and Ryan said it, I think George more, but when you asked about the EMTs, doctors, and the trainers, and they made a very important distinction that the trainers, and this too, you were down in the locker room, but the trainers are there, every day. And they yuck it up. They play jokes on each other. And for a trainer to have that kind of level of familiarity with the players, and all of a sudden going to whatever, shave his chest and try to save his life in front of 70,000 people or whatever. Wow, what a switch to flick.
Yeah.
This is not medical school. This is
your friend. And this is your friend.
Right.
This is your friend. Like these guys are, like you said, the most intimate room. When we talk to Bud, the most intimate room in the entire building is the training room.
Yeah.
The locker room obviously is a bubble. The locker room is a haven for the players, but the training room is even like inside of the locker room. It's like the holiest place in the building, right? Because guys are vulnerable. They're they're injured. They're whatever, and the trainers become friends, confidants, somebody to rely on. So I can't imagine going from that role, you see breaks, strains, whatever, to the idea of trying to save your buddy's life,
right?
Like right there on the spot,
right?
I can't get over that, and I love that idea of maybe honoring them Sunday or going forward. It's amazing.
Oh, hey, Jeremy Kelly, if you're listening, I know you have a voice over there.
Yeah, let me ask you a couple things from the fallout from Kevin. So I read last night that Troy Vincent is actually pushing already to make sure that Damar has basically becomes like a vested veteran even though he only has 2 years in the league. With Kevin, like, was he able to get like the full, like, because I know you handled a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Was he able to get like the full range of benefits that the NFL has? And like, what are those benefits for a player if they get hurt?
His injury was so extraordinary that, I mean, we had meetings and we all know what to do. I got the bills paid. I paid the doctors. I handled workers' comp claims, medical records, the trainers, and treated the player. But we all had to get together, including Mr. Wilson sent Jeff Littman, who pulled all the purse strings, to Buffalo from Detroit just to meet with all of us, and essentially said, don't spare a dime. He was flown in ambulance planes, which I didn't even know existed. It was in such a special category that the league designated Kevin, and this might have been the first time, at least it was for a Buffalo Bills player, as having a catastrophic injury, which meant that there was a tax-free amount of money that Kevin would be paid, I believe, for the rest of his life.
Okay.
And that was the only time that I believe, and Hamlin is clearly
sure. So
seemed like in that situation.
If he is never able to recover and play, he will be taken care of by the league. Is it the league or is it the Bills?
The league puts the money aside for the catastrophic pay.
Okay.
So, but then the team pays it to him. I don't know if there's a reimbursement or not. I don't know if the team through the CBA says, yeah, we'll sign up for that in the event that it happens. But it happened with him, and I think with Hamlin, not since Kevin Everett until now has there been one in that category again.
So like from your perspective, from the front office perspective, when Kevin got hurt, the game goes on, right? Like the business of the NFL doesn't stop.
It literally went on that day. I mean, the game went on. But you're right. Business happened too.
What was it like? So I saw that the Bills picked up, and Chris, you probably know the transaction better than I do. Last night, the Bills, picked up a safety and they released Xavier Rhodes. And I saw some like pushback kind of on social media of, how could they be conducting business while, right. I guess I was just, from your point of view, was it difficult the next day to go into the office and just pretend as if, you lost a tough game, but it was way more than losing a tough game in 2007. Like, how long did it take, you and the GM, the guys in the front office to kind of be able to move on without it being weird?
Dick Duran was the head coach at the time, and he put out a memo to everyone in the building saying, there's a room downstairs, I think it was the Players Lounge, where there's a camera, and what we'd like you to do is go, whether you knew Kevin or not, go and give him a video personalized message just to let him know what his thoughts are. And he said, we don't even know when he's going to be able to view it, but God willing, when he is able to, and maybe it was interesting what George said there about the fact that I think he said, did he go there the next night? And Kevin acknowledged him, with his eyes that like he knew he was there. Like George seemed pretty convinced that Kevin knew he was there, but the video was sent to him, and we heard later that he really appreciated it. But you have to go on with your business. That was opening day, and
did you feel like did it hang over the entire season?
Ryan said something there about you have to go on and you kind of quote forget, or you compartmentalize was the word he used, and that's true. You have to, you're being paid to do a job. But it never goes away. You just kind of shelve it, and then you hear some other news about him, and it just comes back. But hopefully, and this is just incredible news today with Hamlin. With Kevin, there was a concern that he'd never walk again. With Hamlin, I have no idea. I mean, his injuries were so little apples and oranges, maybe in just the terms of it being an organ, and not necessarily, if he does recover, hopefully he can, physically do things. I don't want to speculate out anything else beyond that, but I don't know. There's still a fog about it for me. But it's tough, but you have to cut through it.
Yeah. I think like going forward, I thought of you, when it happened Monday night and the toll and the strain that it takes on an entire organization when one of your guys, goes down like that. It's not, obviously it's the players first and his teammates and then the coaches, but even the front office guys, even guys like you. I mean, you clearly have a bond with George and Ryan and other guys who, pop in your office and, it's jokes and it's when are you going to pay me? and the cafeteria and you lose sight of the fact that you're around a bunch of non-football related people on a daily basis as well. And you guys are all there. When I was there, it was to support the team. It was to support the players.
Yeah.
And I was struck, when I watched this happen, when I was a coaching assistant, I was 23 and I was the youngest person on the staff by far.
Mm-hmm.
And I related to the players in a way that a lot of the other guys didn't. So a lot of them, Keon Carpenter and I would play a game during practice where he'd try to come up from behind me. We try to come up from behind each other. And like whoever, I don't even remember what it was like a kind of this glorified game of tag. Okay. With me and a starting safety. And it was like two brothers and me, Keon couldn't be any more different, but I grew together with him. He was my age. And like I went to his house. I went to his apartment a couple times. Like we became friends. And I think him playing safety, Damar was a safety, same age. Like we had this bond because you're just with these guys all the time. And even more so than the time, you're pulling towards a common goal. It's not like, it's such a unique, we've talked about this before. It's such a unique environment and you guys are literally all on the same team, trying to defeat another team, for your livelihood, for your family, for your friends. Yeah. Like it's such a bond that I was really struck by that Monday night. Like it was really upsetting.
For sure. And with Chris here, a couple things you mentioned, you're on the same team. Like you and I now have joined the Cover One team. And it was interesting because we were kind of like, what do we do now? If you're in radio, those guys have to go on the air every day and they can't not talk about it. It's the elephant in the room. But Chris was on the group message there. And I forget whether it was Greg or Eric just said, hey guys, no, we're shelving the podcast, right? And then I would like to ask Chris too, what your experiences was, personal experience watching the game on Monday night for you.
Oh, it was terrifying. I mean, I think the players' reactions said it all. That was probably the hardest. I mean, we couldn't really see on the broadcast the CPR as it was happening. I only heard about it when the commentary team reported that it was happening, but you could tell from just the looks on Josh's face, Tre'Davious White. I mean, everybody they showed was just distraught, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I don't want to drone on about it. We've heard lots of reactions. It was a really scary moment.
Yeah, it just was. And you've been with Cover One for longer than we have, but I was impressed with the sensitivity to it, and then by the same token, they told us the other night, hey guys, we're given that there was good news, some progress with Hamlin, that go ahead and resume and just use your good judgment and you
feel a little bit better and maybe a little bit easier to talk about what comes next,
right?
And how the guys react. I'm sure that there is elation and relief. I remember telling you that one of the things that struck me when I was transferred from the marketing department to the football department is that when the game was over, I was always struck by the sense of relief that the players had, win or lose. And it was a little jarring at first because it's like, oh man, we lost. Like you're supposed to have this, oh, I'm upset, I'm pissed off. Yeah. You see that because the game ends and guys are seeing guys they haven't seen in a while, teammates from high school, teammates from college, guys they grew up with, guys they know,
opponents,
and their opponents in there. A lot of times there's like the jersey swap. You saw the Tremaine and Terrell Edmonds, when they swapped jerseys, and the Cook brothers. There's that picture from earlier this year where James and Delvin are together, and Delvin's got this big smile on his face because they just won this ridiculous game, and James kind of looks a little miserable holding up Delvin's jersey. But the sense of relief that they all got through this together. And the only thing I could compare it to in my life was when I ran, a few marathons. And just when you're done, it's just however you finished, however you did, just that sense of relief that you're okay, and that all of your teammates are okay, and that your opponents are okay, and the wins and losses obviously matter, but the overall safety of the guys matters way more. And I think the closer you are to it, the easier it is to understand that these guys are all in this together, even if it's Bills, Dolphins, or Ravens, Steelers, or whatever. They're in this together.
They hate each other, but they're still So I mean, Ryan and George. So before they did a great job of explaining that too. Before we close, what do we know about the Bills going forward?
Yeah, Chris, maybe you could help us here.
Anything?
What's the latest there? And I mean, it seems like it's trending like they're going to play Sunday, right?
It seems like they're trying to find something resembling normalcy in their day-to-day. I mean, there's word that they're practicing today. There's going to be media availability. We've got an injury report for this week. Honestly, guys, whether or not the game happens, if the Bills just decided to forfeit this game to the Patriots and take the week, take the bye that they're probably not going to get now because of the whatever the league comes up with to deal with the fact that the Bills-Bengals game likely won't happen. I don't think anyone should blame them for whatever choice they make, and I think that it's perfectly reasonable. Any outcome from not playing the Patriots at all to playing and falling kind of flat because they're just not, their head's not in the game, to going out and completely destroying the Patriots because they want to go out and get one for Damar. I mean, any range of outcomes is within the realm of reason here, and it's such a such a wide range of outcomes, it's really tough to predict.
Right.
But I think there is some value to looking at the matchup with the Patriots briefly from a point of view of like, under normal conditions, this is what we might expect, with the caveat that you expect the unexpected because of the situation.
Right. Right. No, it's an interesting, it's an interesting position that, the Bills find themselves in, that the league finds itself in, that the Patriots find themselves in.
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's gotta be you hate to ever feel sorry for the Patriots, but it's kind of a tough spot for them, I know I saw that they canceled their media availability yesterday, and you're coming in here and obviously everyone's concern here is going to be about Damar and the emotional aspect of that. Like it's kind of a tough spot for them as well.
Yeah, and they need to win to get in the playoffs, right? Or is it as simple as that? Or do they?
If they win, they're in.
If they win, they're in. I mean, it's a lot at stake football wise.
There's a lot at stake football wise for the Patriots. There is something kind of strange going on with them sneaking into that last playoff spot. On the surface, it looks like, the Patriots, they must be playing better. They're all of a sudden back in the playoff race. Really, it's not the case. This is more a result of the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Titans all collapsing down the stretch. The Patriots are 2-4 over the last 6 games, guys.
Oh, I didn't realize that. And the horrible way they lost that one game. Right?
I watched the Miami game last week, and they won, but they were not impressive at all.
Yeah.
They basically won because Shurefield had to play quarterback for Miami, and that was pretty much the reason they won that game, right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, So they beat the Jets with Zach Wilson throwing for 77 yards.
That's brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had a game against the Cardinals that I had. It was the game that Kyler Murray got hurt. So
Oh, wow.
the Cardinals were already bad with Kyler Murray, and then the Jets game was like if you go back, that's the 7th game into the past, right? So the 2 wins over the past 6 games are that win over the Dolphins, who have been, they're starting their 3rd quarterback, and the win over the Cardinals without Kyler Murray. I mean, Murray attempted 1 pass in that game before he went out with an injury. And if you look at the Bills and the Patriots first matchup, going into that game, the 4 weeks leading into the first Bills-Patriots matchup, Patriots were actually the number 7 team in overall DVOA, which for anyone listening who's not familiar with that statistic, it's defense adjusted value over average. It's a way of ranking teams based on how they've performed against other teams and how other teams have performed against that. So it's a little more sophisticated than looking at statistics like raw stats or points to rank defenses and offenses.
Cover One has some acronyms. They bring some heavy acronyms. It's good.
Just trying to give a little bit more of a than you might get just by looking at box scores and so forth. But
it's in the weeds, but people they eat that up.
Well, at that time, the Patriots were the number 7 team in the 4 weeks leading into the first matchup. The Bills were actually number 11. They were in a bit of a rut, and they had the number 10 offense. The Bills won that game, we know, 24-10. They pretty much dominated that game, honestly. Like, even despite the up and down part of the season that they were in. Going into this matchup, guys, the 4 weeks leading into this current matchup, the Patriots have fallen from the number 7 team in overall DVOA to number 20. Their defense is still top 5. Their offense has been bottom 10 pretty much all year. The Bills, on the other hand, were number 7 leading into the first matchup. They're now number 2 overall.
Nice.
And their offense has improved from number 10 to number 2. So you're looking at 2 teams that on the football field are trending in opposite directions. And I just want to make that really clear because I know the Patriots sneaking into that wild card spot, it's just a little bit deceptive because they're not. It's like
it's a little it's some fool's gold. There's some
it's very much there. Backing in. Yeah, it's like drought era Bills backing into the playoffs sort of a situation.
Well, as the former director of football administration throughout the entire drought,
we almost got through a whole show about that.
Don is unable to tell you what it's like to back into the playoffs.
I was there before. I just as my responsibilities increased, whatever. Yeah,
Chris,
it was a bad correlation.
Chris, thank you for setting me up for that. That one, that was beautiful.
You guys text each other a message that. I will say this though. First of all, that's more good news but it feels good. I think for me, and we got the license for it to be able to talk football, offense, defense rankings, with some good news last night. But the news that we just got, actually 2 pieces of news, 2 sources anyway. One before we went on the air, one during. It feels good, like to have the license to just be able to kind of talk normal football again, right? Before
football.
We close.
Yep. And I guess sure it's a huge relief for the team. I'm sure it's a huge relief just to. I think we've talked about it all week that they needed that. They needed that positive piece of news in order to be able to refocus. Otherwise, I don't know how you prepare. How do you talk about how to attack the Patriots or how to defend them? I mean, how do you even think about that when your brother is, in critical condition in the hospital after going into cardiac arrest on the field right in front of you? It's just
hopefully at least personally, I know for Don and I, and I'm assuming you, Chris, there's like just a little bit of a weight lifted, and we're far away from the situation. Yeah. So I can only imagine the closer you get to Damar and to the situation, the more the weight of the fear of the worst, might be lifting a little bit, which then gives you license to breathe and maybe sleep. These guys probably haven't slept in a couple days. I guess, maybe just a couple thoughts before we go. I love Buffalo. I really do. And it's cliche. And I mean, I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life. Don came here
for my whole adult life.
Yep. Don's an upstate New York guy. Like
I've lived here longer than I lived.
There you go.
Speculator.
Yep. Yeah. And
my kids are born here, right?
I like, we love Buffalo, and we both have had a relationship with the Bills, and we both had our ups and our downs. But the city, what the city has seen in the last month has been awful. Yeah. And I'm always proud to travel and to, say I'm from Buffalo when you'll get the stupid snow jokes or, chicken wings.
That's another thing too. The shows we had on, oh my gosh, how did they handle this weather situation? Like that just got so relegated to
I'm proud of the city, of the community. I'm proud of the fans. I'm proud of 99% of people on social media who I think handled this with dignity and class. I can't get over the Bengals response. Yeah. Like the crowd in Cincinnati was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Bengals fans who are in here with us right now. We appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, wow. I put myself in so as the players started to walk off the field, when they said they were gonna, suspend the game, I thought to myself, boy, there might be some fans that are angry, booing. I mean, God only knows, them drinking all day, whatever else. It was as respectful and as courteous as I was. And
that's what we observed. But even anecdotally, I haven't heard any Bills fans that were there say, but there was this one jerk. Like none of it.
Yeah.
The whole, they were incredible. Thank you.
It gives you,
Cincinnati.
I mean, it gives you faith that, as terrible as things seem sometimes, it's amazing how people, of good faith in different communities or rivals or whatever can observe something like that and come together and just realize that there's a way bigger picture here.
Yeah. And then what George and Ryan said too, they kind of crystallized what you just said. George is in Kentucky, Ryan's in Dallas, but man, Buffalo's still so special to them.
Yeah, Buffalo's the best. It really is. It really is. It really is. We're gonna end it there. And thank you to Chris Kepner, thank you to George Wilson and to Ryan Neufeld. Yes. And we will be back with another episode likely early next week. Yeah. And we'll see everybody then.
Chris, thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. Keep your thoughts and prayers with Damar, everybody, and
Absolutely.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Right. Go Damar.